Hello, one and all, and welcome to the very thrown together return of Opposite Field. We have not been on the air since the lockout 2 years ago, but myself and Colin are coming back with a vengeance for the new season. Colin, how are you doing tonight, my brother?
I'm great. I'm great. How about you?
Yeah, this is good. This is going to be fun. We are back for baseball. We're 2 days too late, but that I think is more of a Rob Manfred problem than a us problem because
Yeah.
the opening day, and we'll get into the fact that our stream name is the Soul Survivors because there's a lot going on from these two games, but more importantly, we're going to do the opposite field gimmick of doing our predictions for the season. Uh, Instead of having Papagino's backgrounds, which we were bantering about doing beforehand, we're just kind of having our own little things where I'm just going to fade into the Dodgers logo every once in a while. And are you in the
This is
fuck,
backyard baseball,
yeah,
1997.
backyard baseball? Are you going to be the kid that can hit a home run whenever?
Oh yeah. Yep.
Yeah,
What is his name? He's somewhere around here. I don't know
yeah,
if I can see him.
he's lingering.
He's
We're just
lingering.
gonna assume he's there. That's all that matters.
Oh, there he is. Reed Worthington. Oh no, he's a pitcher. Yeah.
Reese
Yeah.
Witherspoon,
Yeah.
yeah, Reese Witherspoon, fabled baseball legend. But
hmm
my my big thing for this season, because every time, and I know you deal with the same shit when we try to like talk with people about baseball. It's like, oh God, why are you talking about baseball? It's so
Oh yeah.
long. It's that sport that gets the most general groans from people,
I hear that
and
baseball is dead 45 times a day.
yeah.
So
But it when you get with somebody that kind of understands it and doesn't necessarily fall into that vortex, there's so much to be excited about going into the season.
mm,
And I think a lot of it comes from just, and I don't want to be that person that goes, oh well, my team is kind of ruin it for everybody. But the Dodgers are one of those teams that they've done so much that it kind of takes the so-called fun out of it for the National League. But that's that's kind of been the case for the past couple of years, and they've shit their pants when push came to shove. But I think the American League may be more open than it's ever been. So when we do our predictions for this year, I have a feeling that the both of us are going to have very varying opinions on who's going where in that particular league.
yeah, and I think that one of the things about the Dodgers is they did spend an absorbent amount of money, and obviously, rightfully so. They got, in my opinion, the best athlete in American sports right now. And why wouldn't you pass up at signing him? We'll talk about that later. But what I was getting to is just because you spend the money doesn't guarantee anything. And we talked about this a few years ago when the San Diego Padres spent almost $1 billion just on the infield, and they, I don't even know if they got out of the first round that year. That was the COVID year, I believe, that they spent that money. But even going forward to 2021, 22, last year, the Padres, were basically uh, the poster child for it doesn't matter how much money you spend, you still got to win, and they did not.
Yeah, very very much so. They even though they put up a nice Iowa football score today against the Dodgers with their 15-11 win, which I think we'll get to when we talk
Yeah,
about the NL West and all of that goodness.
yeah.
But I think I would be remiss if we didn't start our predictions with the AL and starting in the East, just so you can kind of cathartically get your Red Sox rant out of your system. So I'm going to do my predictions for the division first, and then I will hand it off to you, and I will just let you run. I will
Okay,
pass the baton, and I will just let you just sprint. And you know what? You may just be Forrest Gump and run out of the stadium. I'm cool with it.
cool.
So my predictions for the American League East for this coming year is it's not going to be much different in terms of the winner.
Okay.
Uh, I think it's once again going to be the Baltimore Orioles. They have new ownership, and it seems they have a commitment to keeping, despite Kyle Bradish being beat up and may. I don't know what the timetable is entirely for him being out, but they seem to have a plan to kind of make up the gap for him not being around. And that offense, especially if they get Jackson Holiday up early, they're going to be dangerous in that division. And yeah, I don't see any of these other teams, even the Yankees, doing enough to catch them in terms of contention in the AL East.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the Baltimore Orioles are the clear favorites for this division, and I wouldn't even say that it's the Yankees that they'll be worried about because I think that it's another offseason in which the Toronto Blue Jays try and try and try to just make a name for themselves. And, I talked about the San Diego Padres. You want to talk about someone that steps over their own 2 feet, it's the Toronto Blue Jays. And, they went out, they signed a few more guys. One of them was uh, oh my God, he played for the Red Sox. What was his name? Justin
Kind
Turner. So that's a nice DH guy for them. Um, they did lose Michael Chapman, so we'll see how that turns out. But again, I think that the Blue Jays are one of those teams that they say to their fans and they say to baseball, "This is the year we're going to go all out. We're going to try to build this team." And then the season comes, they put together a nice string of wins here and there, but just can't ever live up to what they themselves have told everyone they're going to be. Um, and I think while it was a very nice, let's call it almost a decade for the Tampa Bay Rays, I think that window is closing, especially with the dark cloud that is Wendy Franco looming over them. uh, and that whole situation. But I just think that um, Tampa, they're a team that you almost have to admire for how well they've been the last couple of years. But I just think that Baltimore has become the new Tampa, but better. Um, and for Baltimore to make that move to get Corbin Burns is just the kind of move that you're not used to seeing the Orioles make. And it just shows how serious they are. Um, their pitching staff, when everyone's healthy, is going to be one of the best in the AL. I just, like you, I have questions about Brandish. I have questions about John Mean. Can they stay healthy? But if everything clicks, uh, I think Baltimore is probably the favorite to come out of the AL this year.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Toronto. They are a team that likes to get a lot of bark but not much bite, and they have a really just deep lineup. But that pitching staff, especially that bullpen, is something that
Yeah,
in that division you can't really put too much stock in. And yeah, we're not going to dive too much into the old Wander Franco
yeah,
saga.
yeah.
We'll let the we'll let the authorities deal with that. But I think Tampa has kind of they've played on that fence of just what what can we just pull off the scrap heap for so long? How many times can we just develop these guys and build this bullpen and do these games where we have openers and then we have 9 relievers over the course of there's only so long that you can do that before it kind of falls apart.
And I think
Yeah.
them like waving the metaphorically white flag was trading Tyler Glass now to the Dodgers earlier in the offseason because let's face it, like he was their ace, and yeah, he obviously had a big injury, um, but he was healthy this year, obviously, and Tampa just would they were just kind of like our window I think is closing. Let's just get what we can and trade him to the best offer, and obviously that was LA.
Yeah, and they knew he was going to be coming up
Yeah.
for a big contract, and I don't think they really wanted to deal with that.
Hmm.
But moving on from there to the most non-plus division in the sport, the AL Central, where I think there's
Yeah.
a lot of just ambiguity. There's arguments that could be made for every team to win, and there's just as many arguments for every team to come in last.
Yeah.
It is the most competitive and crappiest division in probably all professional sports if we're really being serious, because everybody talks about some of the divisions in the NFL, like the AFC South. You're like, oh man, God, there could be like a both the Souths, the NFC and the AFC South. Is
Yeah.
like, oh my God, there could be a team that's like 8-9 that wins the division this year. The AL Central is just the majority of the division winners wins is going to be come from eating their own. They're going to
Yeah.
get they're not going to go on the road out of division and win a ton of games.
And
There could be
even in the football analogies that you use, 8 and 9 is not like winning your division 68 wins and 90 something losses and calling that a win, which is entirely possible for this division.
yeah, I don't think we're gonna have an under 500 division winner, even though I predicted that a couple of years ago with the NL Central, and we'll
Yeah.
get to there at some point. But it is one of those things where it is going to have a team have to like catch fire
Yeah.
at some point during the year, and there's plenty of ta- talents in this division that could do that. It's just a matter of just getting uh, that match between the pitching and the hitting at the same time to basically, I'd say, run 2 months where you can get that gap between the competition to really just put them to bed.
Well,
So
if I ask you a question, who do you think is the weakest team in that division? And we've already, obviously we're agreeing that they are all equally on pretty bad footing, but like the weakest of the teams.
and And it feels weird to say because for years it was the team that we were picking to win it.
Mhm.
I think it's the White Sox.
I think it's the White Sox too.
I think it is.
Yeah,
That despite having two of arguably the most talented players
yeah,
in the division, they're a team where their bullpen's a mess.
yes.
They're
Their rotation's a mess.
after trading Dylan Cease, their rotation is just you don't know who's the ace. Going 1 to 5, you can basically just throw it into a bingo tumbler and
Yeah,
and just pick who's pitching on a given day, and nobody's going to really make an argument. But I think it's something where Chicago want to compete. I don't think they're really basically throwing it in. They're just so incompetent that they've backed themselves into a corner. And I think losing to Jose Abreu was the first
yeah,
domino that fell.
yep,
And they're just like, okay, he's old. We can do that. And then they tried to kind of just do the like first base guy by committee,
mhm,
and they're throwing Andrew Vaughn everywhere and just going, oh well, yeah, no, but we have versatility. He's like,
yeah,
no,
yeah,
you, you have a Swiss Army knife, but none of your tools work.
right.
Like your knife's dull, your corkscrew doesn't go into the cork. You're sitting here thinking that you have this great bit of just plug and play, and it's just not the case.
Yeah, and
I yeah, they're a sad state of a franchise right now.
I'll go as far as saying I think that there is a significant gap between the White Sox and the other three teams, and uh, because I think that the Tigers are an interesting team. Um, I don't think they're that good, but they're not as bad as the White Sox. I don't think they're going to win the division, but I could see them trying to make a third wild card team.
The Tigers are interesting because they have a bunch of guys that you peg as if they are on their game.
Yes.
Those guys are like if they
Yeah.
are on their game.
Javi Baez being one of
Yeah,
them.
if Torkelson
Yeah.
just takes that next step,
Hmm.
if Tarek Skubal doesn't fall off a cliff,
Hmm.
they have horses
Yeah.
to really make themselves the bosses of that division. But once again, it comes down to that consistency. And I I think the back half of that rotation, especially losing Eddie Rodriguez to the Diamondbacks, I don't think it does them any favors.
Well,
It's
that's the
going to
craziest thing is because Rodriguez was having basically an all-star year for them on a team that was garbage, and they didn't trade him, but yet let him walk. And so you got to think like that's the kind of mismanagement that I think
yeah,
the White Sox have been doing lately.
yeah.
You know?
It's a team that doesn't is unaware that they have
Yeah.
an asset,
Yep.
and they're like, okay, we're not going to particularly compete this year.
Right.
Maybe we go get something for him going forward.
Hmm.
And yeah, it's and I think if we're going to go over this, the American League has a substantial amount of those franchises against the NL. Because I think the NL, there's teams that have the awareness that they're kind of shit and they're not really going for it.
But I think the AL does too. I just
But I think the only team in the AL that has that awareness that they're shit and they're not going to go for it is Oakland. because they're
I would say I would say
and
the
we'll
Red
get there.
Sox too.
No, because they're still trying to, despite everything that they are still trying to sell their fan base that we're going to go for it. We have this core, even though if you look at it objectively, you're going, this is not a team that's going to go anywhere.
I mean, I didn't want to get into them yet. We can save it for later. But like, let's say, for example, which is what I think is probably going to happen, the Yankees signed Jordan Montgomery. Like, you might as well tell your fan base they don't care about the team anymore, which for the last few years had been the writing on the wall for John Henry and the Fenway Group.
Yeah, and like I said,
Yeah,
I'll let you get your
yeah, we'll go
bloodline.
we'll go in, but back to the Central. This was a very difficult pick for me, and I imagine as we talk here, it was for you too. And I went back and forth with a team that I think you probably picked, that I was going to pick, and I didn't. Did you pick the Twins?
I did pick the Twins.
Okay. I was going back and forth, and I think the Twins are a pretty good team on paper. I just worry about injuries racking up with that team, and I'm just kind of limping into the playoff because their division's so bad.
They are definitely a team that, if, because I think they've, as an organization, factored in that Byron Buxton is not going to play.
Yeah,
I I won't even say 162 games. They're
yeah,
factoring in that Byron Buxton ain't going to get to 100 games. So
yeah,
they are built. They're trying to build their roster with enough utility guys to make up for the fact that he's not even going to play half the season. And
hmm,
they need to get guys to fill in the outfield spots, but also have guys that can fill in, because they're not particularly spring chickens on the infield. So they need to get a lot of rotation through. But I think, uh, as much as we've bagged on Rocco Baldelli in the past, he's a guy that kind of has the pulse of the team
yeah,
at all times. He knows when guys are, and we've seen this in sports where you've seen a guy that is hot and a coach inexplicably pulls him from a
yeah,
game.
yeah,
Or you've seen a receiver that catches 7 straight passes and then the guy gets pulled and sat on the, or
yeah.
a guy that makes like 5 shots and then sits on the bench for
The
4
rest of the game.
minutes.
Yeah.
A guy that goes 4 for 4 and then doesn't play the next 2 games. I think
He,
Baldelli is a guy that, he recognizes momentum and will not, he will ride it into the ground if anything.
but also they don't have a distinct leader in our club. I mean, Buxton would have been, but like you said, he's not going to play most of the season.
Yeah,
I don't think
losing Sonny Gray was big too.
I don't think Correa is going to live up to any kind of amount that he was supposed to. Um, so you know they're just a team that, like, if they make it, it's just going to be because their division is so bad. I don't think they're going to be uh, shocking anybody. I don't think they're going to roll through the AL. I just think that they're just going to be there based on circumstances.
Yeah, but in the same thought process, I think, and you bring up Correa, he's a guy that, made, he was kind of in that vortex of who's going to pay him. There was a bunch
Yeah,
of like failed physicals and stuff,
right.
and then he ended up coming back to Minnesota. I don't think he's a guy that is particularly viewed as a leader, but I think being like a secondary guy
Yeah.
is not out of the realm of possibility, which is why I think them going and getting Carlos Santana
Yeah.
is kind of big because and we talked about it when he went to Kansas City. He's a guy that is his his general stats aren't going to fly off the page. Like he's going to hit probably 230. He's going to he's not going to give you much in the way of defense, but he's going to walk a bunch and
Hmm.
he's going to, especially with the Spanish players, fucking hold people accountable
Yeah.
and bring guys up. He
Yeah.
is a guy that can make players rally and he can get guys just to not necessarily raise their game, but to at least get them to the point where like and I think it's big with a guy like Correa, like remember who they are. Be like you're not a fucking 240 hitter.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Yeah.
I'm going to sit here and I'm going to get on base every time in front of you. And if you don't knock me in, I'm going to come back to the dugout and I'm going to fucking yell at you.
Yeah.
And I think that is massive for a team like the Twins. Just have a guy that will just come in and just kind of be that piss and vinegar guy that is really going to light a fire under their best player because as talented as Buxton is, Correa is their best offensive player.
Oh yeah.
And if you can get him to get out of his own head,
Yeah.
I think that is going to be the hugest part of them. And I think with however much talent that Kansas City has and all the young guys that Detroit has that are just kind of primed to break out, and Cleveland, for as flawed as they are, they still got a ton of arms that can just probably go 180 innings apiece.
Yeah.
You gotta just have that X factor, and I think Minnesota's bullpen and having Carlos Santana there to kind of be that rallying crier. He's not gonna be sitting there fucking waving a towel, but like I said, when like Correa comes after striking out, he's gonna be like, yeah, you knew that slider was coming. Why the fuck did you swing at it?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's big for them.
Well, I I did pick Kansas City to win the division, uh, and mostly based on the fact that the
They
moves
they
that
they they did make a lot of moves.
and they were impressive moves, uh, and they stole players from teams that you would never think Kansas City would be able to just kind of pick up, like Michael Aka, like Seth Lugo, like Hunter Renfro. I mean, they kind of and forget about the fact that they signed their guy to a huge one of probably the largest contract in Kansas City history. You know, it's up there with in terms of baseball history.
Yeah, the
And they
Bobby Witt
should,
deal was huge for them.
and they should. The guy hit what did he hit? 33 home runs last year, something like that.
He
Um,
was he was tremendous for them.
yeah, I think that that is a team. I'll tell you why I like Kansas City next to Baltimore. And I'm not saying that Kansas City and Baltimore are on the same level. I don't think they're anywhere close. But Kansas City signed their franchise player to a long term deal and then went out and got players to build around him to make sure that guy doesn't fail. So they went out and got a veteran hitter like Renfro. They went out and got veteran pitchers like Waka and Lugo. They were able to build the team. They spent, I think, 200 million alone. Forget the Bobby Witt deal, just on free agents to make sure that this team is, you know, living up to the expectation that Witt is going to be the franchise player for years to come. And what we started this segment by saying it's already a weak division. Why not take a chance, throw some money at some players, and go for it all?
Yeah, and I love the sentence that you said. They put people around him so that the guy that they invested the most money in doesn't fail.
Yeah,
And there's so many teams that throw money at a young guy, or Colorado is a huge one where they put a
yeah,
ton of money in Chris Bryant and then
yep.
just
Then
did
just
nothing.
yeah,
They what Kansas City did, and I agree with you, is they're like, okay, we have Bobby Witt that is going to take up this spot both in the lineup, in the locker room, and in the field. And now we have to put good defenders around him.
hmm
We have to put ground ball pitchers around him. And we have to have guys that can knock him in. And it's not something where they're going to be able to go attract A-level free agents, but they
but
took a
B
shot
level,
in every single regard that I said.
yeah.
They brought guys in every single one of those fields, and if it works, that's great. If not, at least they fucking tried. And
And
that's all you can ask from a small market team is the effort.
but it's not like the guys that they signed um are a bunch of bums. Like I would
No,
say uh I would say that um, Michael Waka and, to a degree, Hunter Renfro both revitalized their career, ironically, with the Red Sox a few years ago. And, you know, Waka
Woodrow's a guy that you can use both in the rotation and in the
and the
pen.
bullpen. Yep.
That's huge. And
Uh,
and just from another versatility standpoint, Hampson, a guy from Colorado,
yeah,
a guy that when he signed, I'm like, oh, who cares? This guy's like 35. Motherfucker's 29.
yeah, yeah.
He's seemingly been around forever, but he's a guy that can play multiple infield positions. You can pop him from 2 to 9 in your lineup. They're at least putting in an effort, which is from a small market team. That's all you can ask for.
And if you want to really dial in on the two teams we talked about and kind of look at it in a vacuum, I think the winner of the Royals and Twins season series will win the division.
Yeah,
And because I think that I man, because Cleveland is such a difficult team to really talk about
yeah.
because they could be there in the end.
They could. The only reason I put Cleveland as low as I did because I think they're going to trade a bunch of people.
See,
I think that
Ramirez,
Jose
you think the Tito
Ramirez is probably
Ramirez
going to
thing?
get dealt.
Yeah.
Probably deadline wise. I don't think Shane Bieber's long for that team.
Yeah. I thought Shane Bieber was like,
I
you
thought he
know,
was going to be gone this offseason.
December, he's out of
Yeah,
here.
yeah,
I
yeah.
thought this was Merry Christmas to some team. He was gone.
And
And
and I think this year that there's going to be so many teams in contention for the playoffs
yeah,
that a guy like Tristan McKenzie is going to uh, demand a king's ransom, and
yeah,
somebody will pay it.
yeah, Toronto Blue Jays.
Yeah,
Because that's what they
That's-
do. That's what they
you're
do.
probably not wrong.
Yeah. uh, but yeah, so I think it's the Royals. Um, again,
Yeah, I'm with you. It's a Royals Twins, but it's basically the race to 86 wins.
yeah, and
Right?
again, for my argument with the Royals, yeah, for my argument with the Royals, is you got to have a little luck in that division as well, while it's a bad division, you still got to be healthy. You still gotta, you can't. I can't say like, oh, Michael Walker improved his career and then he goes out and loses 13 games. Like you gotta still to
Yeah.
live up to your potential. You still gotta win games.
Yeah, and they got to solidify a closer in Kansas City. There's
Yeah, yeah,
but that's something that they can over the first month kind of put together.
yeah.
And I have a faith and I have enough faith that they can at least
Put it together.
granted with a young manager it, with a bullpen and a young manager, I at least have the thing that he's not going to be tied to a single person. Whereas like older head managers, they get the guy, and even if he's kind of fucking up and he's just consistently blowing saves, it's like, no, this is my guy.
Yeah.
This is my closer. I have a guy in the eighth. I have a guy in the seventh. And that's how I do it
And
forever.
I hope that with the spending spree that the front end office did for the Royals, if they are in any kind of contention by July, August, they will make moves uh, that will improve. I would hate to see them stand pat after having such a extraordinary offseason.
And like the teams that we're going to talk about very shortly, they have the farm system to go get
Yes,
somebody.
yes,
Granted that I don't think they are in a position to completely deplete that farm system the way the Padres have the past couple years, where they just go, "Hey, what's a top 100 prospect? We've traded our top 15 prospects 5 times over,
yeah. And none of those
and
guys,
now and
well,
now
and,
and
and
now
like four of them are not even on the team anymore.
and now when they go and trade Soto, they get back a fucking bag of balls that
Yeah,
can't get a single out."
yeah,
But that's neither here nor there. I'm not
yeah.
gonna I'm not gonna disparage after losing 15-11 today. But on to the AL West. I will let you lead off with your thoughts on who's going to win and then going from there.
So I think that this is also a bad division. I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't think it's a good division. I think I it's become a meme at this point, but I do think Seattle has a chance to
It's
win it.
wild to say with the World Series winner in it.
Yeah, right. I just think that uh okay, here's the thing. Texas won the World Series, but you know what? Texas might be the most inconsistent team in the last few years because yeah, they went out and signed these guys 2 years ago, and then was one of the worst teams in baseball. Then they go and they win the World Series. Who knows what is gonna happen this year? They didn't want Jordan Montgomery back. They, you know, did they do anything really to improve their team this offseason? I don't remember any kind of wow moves from a World Series winner. Uh, the Astros are still the Astros, so there's no guarantee that the Rangers are gonna uh, knock them out like they did last year. And Seattle is still a young team, and I think that this is George Kirby's year. I'm a little the Robbie Ray trade was a little weird to me. Um, that was a little bizarre because I don't. I'm never I'm never an advocate for trading pitchers uh, that you need. And Robbie Ray is not like
No,
amazing,
he's
but
not a
like
world beater, but
he's a good player for that rotation. And to
yeah,
trade him was
he's a
suspect.
former. He didn't win the Cy Young by accident.
Exactly. And so that was a little suspect. Um, but I just think it's a mess. I think the whole division's a mess. So why not Seattle? You know what I mean? I mean, I don't know if you feel differently about the Rangers than I do. And yeah, they are the defending world champions, but like, does anyone care? Is anyone picking them again? Not that I've seen.
No, I actually have Texas third.
So you have
I have
okay.
Houston 1, I have Seattle 2, and I have Texas 3.
All right. So
And
what are your reasons for
I
Texas?
agree with most of what you say because Texas is a team that they didn't really go and make a ton of splashes.
Yeah.
They are relying heavily on kids coming up. They
Yeah.
they want Evan Carter to be a cheap star. They want Wyatt Langford to be a cheap star. They want Justin Foscue to be a cheap star. They want these guys that are coming up from their farm system that were high. Well, Carter wasn't a high level draft pick. I don't want to make that statement, but the other two were. They want their expenditures in going and getting Jacob DeGrom and trading for Max Scherzer and spending money on Marcus Semien and Corey Seager to just be justified. And then they have to just cut costs everywhere else. And I think this is the year where it cut the wheels kind of fall off because you look at
Well, you're not guaranteed to get two pitchers. You have no idea what's going on with DeGrom, and Max Scherzer might as well hang it up in the next two seasons.
no, and the thing that kills me about DeGrom is a guy that he's viewed as this kind of just nebulous messiah where you're like, oh, he's a guy that if he's healthy is going to be. He's 35.
Yeah, and
If
he's
you
missed
look at
a
it in
lot
like
of seasons.
baseball, if you look at it in baseball terms, people if you think about just like Jacob DeGrom's like dominant seasons, people thought that was happening when he was like in his mid 20s.
Yeah.
Because when when King Felix fell off,
Yep.
it was in his early third. Like Jacob DeGrom is 35.
Yeah.
That's hard for people to kind of wrap their heads around because he came up late to the majors and was so dominant so quickly, but for such a short period of time. And he was injured so much. All of the seasons where he was out kind of just were erased from people's memories.
Yeah.
And now we're at the point where, okay, yeah, he's a guy that's if he can stay on the field is incredibly valuable to a franchise. But there's no real thought that it's going to even happen. Nobody is expecting it anymore, which is sad.
And on the other side of that, these teams, and don't get me wrong, he is a Hall of Famer, and he's one of the best pitchers uh, in baseball history. But these teams that continuously give up top prospects, mid-level prospects for Max Scherzer to try to get what he was back in Detroit almost a decade ago, or a decade ago, is ludicrous for me because I just don't think he's not the same pitcher. Let's just get that out of the way, and he can't stay healthy anymore either.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where I think, and we'll talk about it when we get to the NL East very shortly. Washington's World Series run, I think, set them back a decade
Yeah.
because it got Scherzer on that track to getting stupid money. It
Mhm.
got Strasburg paid stupid money, and it got Bryce Harper to the point where I don't think Washington either wanted to afford him or could.
Yeah.
It got Anthony Rendon stupidly paid.
Mm.
And there's just so much that came from that Washington title team, which has just sent ripples through the league. And I agree with you. Max Scherzer is one of those guys where you're going, yeah, he's somebody that if you can get 15 dominant starts from him, I think you're okay with it.
Yeah.
But he's
But
gonna
is
be
that the? But don't you agree that even that's a tall ask right now?
he's gonna be I think he's gonna be is he did he just turn 39 or is he gonna be 40 this year?
He's
Let me get do a little look sees real quick.
I think he's a year or two younger.
He's gonna be 40 in July.
So he's younger than Verlander, right?
Yes.
Okay. Um, and I just think so. Like, and you mentioned, that title for Washington sent ripple, and it absolutely did. And at the end of the day, I don't think anyone remembered Washington won the World Series. You
People
know?
watch it.
Yeah, yeah.
Those
Maybe
people
that's
do, but
something.
nobody else does. Yeah,
No, but
it is one of those ones that kind of slips under the rug where you're
yeah,
just going,
yeah.
"Oh, that
And they beat
it's
Houston.
a trivia question."
Yeah, and they beat Houston in the thick of Houston dynasty, if you want to call it that. So, it's just crazy to me.
Yeah.
Um, but before we go to the NL, I think we should address the elephant in the room that is the Angels, and obviously they lost Otani, but uh, why do they still have Mike Trout?
Uh, I
I thought he was going to be traded the moment Otani signed with somebody.
so, and I'm kind of with you. There has to come a time where you have that realization that you need to just completely hit the nuke button
Yeah,
and send yourself back to the Stone Ages.
and at that rate, you might as well throw
And
Rendon in
the
there too because he.
Angels are a team that you look at that roster and he is he is like a $500 shirt in a charity shop.
Yeah,
He is a guy that does it's the song one of these things is not like the other,
yeah,
but it's one of these things is not like the other 24 people. It makes it I agree with you. It makes no sense for them to just not completely start over. I'm looking at their pitching staff right now.
hmm
You could literally throw a dart at the wall and tell me who their opening day starter is. Is it Reed Detmers? Is it Patrick Sandoval?
yeah,
Is it the corpse of Tyler Anderson? Is it Griffin Canning? I don't know. Who's
yeah.
going to close games for them? That's a fantastic question. I don't know. Who's going to catch? Is it the kid Logan O'Hop? You can't not say it. I like just super Irishy. And then the infield. Rendon's beat up. So what do you
Not only is Rendon
go
beat up,
look at that roster right now?
it's
There's
but
there's nothing. There's
like,
nothing there that screams contention.
not only is Rendon beat up, but he had openly admitted he doesn't care. So why? What is he still doing on the team? Like, I
He's
understand that you paid these
he's
guys,
making
but you know what?
$35 million a year. They
I
can't
get it.
cut him.
I understand that. And you know what? At the end of the day, you got to cut your losses sometimes. And if he's just going to take up a spot, then you might as well find a suitor for him. I mean, I don't know. I just think that the Angels are just going to be, well, they're going to be the Athletics, but a richer Athletics for the next few years, which I don't even think we should give the Oakland A's or
They're
Las
they're,
Vegas A's.
they're the A's with fake hope.
Yeah, yeah, I don't think we should give the A's any kind of spotlight right now because we all know how that story's gonna end.
No, yeah, fuck that organization. We'll just put it at that.
Yeah,
Fuck the A's. They for the longest time they were
yeah,
my AL team. But no, fuck that ownership. Fuck the
yeah,
way they've just completely diarrheaed on their fans. They deserve every horrible thing that comes to them.
yeah.
And that's all I need to say about that.
But yeah, so just to recap, AL East got the Orioles.
We both got Baltimore.
Yep.
So we'll go into like the wild card minutia when
When
we're done with all the division winners, and
okay,
we'll put all that together. But
okay.
yeah, we both have Baltimore.
Hmm.
You have Kansas City. I have Minnesota. You have Seattle. I have Houston.
Yep.
So that goes to the American League.
Hmm.
I think the National League is going to be a lot easier
Oh yeah.
because it's very top heavy in the two coasts. But
Yeah.
we're going to have a fun discussion in the middle.
Oh yeah.
So we'll start with the East, and we'll kind of we'll move
We'll move across country.
west, and then we'll slowly shimmy our way back to the middle.
Okay. Cool. I have the.
I'm assuming you picked the Braves in the East.
I did. I picked the Braves. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I picked the Braves. I think they are the, clear cut. And while I don't think he's gonna make it through the season, having Chris Sale in that rotation is gonna help the Braves more than hurt them.
Having him as a 3 is
Yeah.
huge.
Yeah. If you can get, I don't know,
You can get
a little bit more than
20 starts.
yeah. If you can get 20 starts out of him, like you've done something right. And
Yeah.
I just think that because I went back and forth between the Braves and the Phillies, but I think that the Braves are just a stronger overall team than the Phillies. Pitching staff, lineup, everything in between.
Yeah, they got arguably one of the top 3 players in baseball in
Yep.
Acuna.
Yep.
They have arguably one of the top 5 pitchers in Strider.
Yep.
In my opinion, because everybody likes to go like, "Oh, he strikes out a bunch of guys, but he doesn't throw a ton of innings because he throws a bunch of pitches because he strikes everybody out." I'm like, you can put those all well and good, but when you get into the playoffs, you want a guy that doesn't put people on base.
Yes.
And
Exactly.
he plows through people in postseason. Yeah, he doesn't have the shiniest of postseason stats, but if you're looking at it as somebody towards the future, he is a guy that you want. And Chris Sale, in as much as we want to like shit on Chris Sale, is a guy that could be there as a 3 or a 4 in a playoff series. Chris Sale is going to be against the Dodgers. I'd take Chris Sale against whatever the Dodgers. They're going to throw out fucking the corpse of Dustin May in Game 4. Wait, I don't know.
Chris Sale out of the bullpen in a playoff game is huge.
It's a very nice chip
Yeah.
for the Braves to have.
Yeah. As well as another Red Sox missed opportunity, getting Adam Dunn back. With
Duvall,
not Adam Dunn. That was 20 years ago. Adam Duvall back with another nice pickup for them. Not Adam Dunn.
Imagine if Adam Dunn.
Adam Dunn retired 15 years ago.
But it's just imagine it's one of those things like when I saw like Harvey Grant playing in the summer league in the NBA. It's like he has like 15 years in the league. Why is he playing in the fucking summer league? It's just Adam Dunn just randomly made a comeback. That'd be great.
I think I had Adam Dunn on every one of my 2K teams, and he hit like 35 home runs.
Hey, you gotta exploit those video game blind spots
Oh
when you
yeah,
can.
oh yeah, yep,
But it the we could I think we can agree that the only team that's going to give Atlanta any issue in that division is Philadelphia.
yeah, and to
Because as
all
much
of
as we
our
want to kind of give New York a bit of the benefit of the doubt, because that lineup is not terrible.
no,
That
but they whether it was you
with with
know
Se- with Senga being hurt, that staff is rough.
yeah, and what I was gonna say is that whether it was you know paranoia or um, some kind of PTSD, they didn't do anything. They tried, but they didn't do anything to improve that team. I just before we recorded, they just signed JD Martinez. Like, okay, what was we? You already had a kind of a decent lineup. What about pitching? Why aren't they going
Why
after
don't you go
Jordan
get Jordan
Montgomery?
Montgomery?
Yeah, like so because I think what happened with the Mets, and I want to know if you agree with me, is they were so gung ho on getting Uemura, and when they failed, that was the end of their offseason.
It's so weird with a team that was so they were the highest payroll in the league last year,
Hmm.
even with the Dodgers doing everything they did.
Hmm.
And then the Mets, you look at things now and you're going, okay, there's the guys that are making tons of money, but there are also guys that are in like line to go get paid.
Hmm.
And I genuinely don't know who's going to get traded if things go south and who is going to be sticking around if it doesn't. It's something where I and everybody was kind of just really touting that the sky is falling once Senga got hurt, and that's I don't think that is a sentiment that is unfounded. But if Kodai Senga getting hurt is the end of your enthusiasm for a season, that's not a good thing.
No, I
And
would say the
yeah,
only person who I think is going to stick around is Pete Alonso. I think everybody else is on that block, including Senge.
now I don't necessarily agree with that entire thing because I think they have a couple of young guys that they're not going to want to move on from that
What
quickly.
what if it's dire? What if it's like they're like a joke?
No, and that's not out of the realm of possibility because in the NL, I think the West is going to be super deep to
Yeah,
the point where they're going to have three, maybe four teams sniffing around the playoffs
yeah,
all season. I think Colorado is the only team that you don't have to worry about.
right.
And we'll talk about that when we talk about the West.
Okay, what if the Marlins start to pull ahead of the Mets? Which is a real possibility. I'm not saying that the Marlins are going to be.
Yeah, no, I take that as you're not saying that the Marlins are going to make the playoffs, but I
Yeah,
think you're saying that the Marlins could sneak ahead.
I don't think the Marlins
because
are
of what
that.
they did last. I think Skip Schumacher is a guy that makes a lot of chicken salad out of chicken shit. He's a guy that can bring a lot out of mediocre players,
Yeah,
which is I don't think something that the Mets will be able to do, especially with uh, another retread manager. But
yeah.
there's so much to say about the Mets where you're going, if the Mets are the biggest if club in the National League, where it's just, well, if this guy stays healthy, if Edwin Diaz comes back without a hitch, if Pete Alonso hits 40 home runs, if Francisco Lindor hits 290, if Brett Batty is actually the guy that we have projected him to be as a top prospect for years. There's so many ifs, whereas other teams are just like, we're just going to be here and kind of go for it. And if we make it, so be it. If not, that's cool. It's there's so many variables that need to go right for the Mets to be in contention that I just think that it just stacks too much up against them.
And out of the two New York teams, as much as you know, I have to admit that the Yankees have a little bit of an excuse as to why they might not be good this year, because no one can stay healthy on that team. At least the Mets, like, if everyone's healthy, they still could be a bad team.
Yeah,
And I would say that the Mets, the Mets lineup is slightly better, if not just as good as the Yankees.
it's on par if you match it up play for player. All right, we're gonna do this right now just because we're at the stage of the evening where we're having a good time.
Yeah,
So let's bring up the Mets versus the Yankees lineup. So you got at first base, you got Rizzo versus Alonso.
you got to take it on, Joe.
I'm taking Alonso,
Yeah.
100%. Then you have Gleyber Torres for the Yankees.
Mm-hmm.
Why did I lose the Mets roster?
It's
My
not
new
McNeil.
computers
Is it
my
McNeil?
new computer's already failing me. Versus Jeff McNeil.
Okay, so they're kind of the same.
I'm
They're kind of,
probably taking Jeff McNeil.
yeah, okay. Yeah, I mean, to me, I think it's a toss up.
Yeah. All right. So we'll put it as a draw.
Yeah,
Then you have young Anthony Volpe against Francisco Lindor.
Lindor.
I'm taking Lindor.
Yeah.
And then you have uh, the rotting corpse of DJ LeMahieu versus Brett Batty. And as much as Brett Batty's unproven, I'd put that as another draw because DJ LeMahieu is a guy that has completely fallen off a cliff.
Mm-hmm.
Not only can he not stay healthy, when he's on the field, he just looks like a shell of himself.
Yeah.
I have never seen a guy who was a batting champion just be completely useless within like a year and a half. It's
Yeah.
absolutely wild.
Mm-hmm.
And there wasn't even like a massive injury that caused it. And he doesn't have like the yips or anything. It's a guy that just went from hitting 330 to not being able to fucking hit his way out of a paper bag.
Yeah.
It makes absolutely no sense.
Yeah. Yeah, and for those reasons, you have to just kind of give it a toss up.
Yeah. So for the outfield, you have Trent Grisham, Aaron Judge, and what? Oh, well, It depends on who you think you're starting at that point. So you have to assume that it's Soto and Judge. Then your middle ground comes between whether you think it's Trent Grisham or Alex Verdugo. And I think Grisham is a guy that I think will end up getting the starting role just because he has more value in terms of what he brings in all facets of the game.
Yeah,
Whereas Verdugo is a guy that I think, especially in the Northeast, is going to have a lot more gravitas and oh, this is a guy that they got from the Red Sox. There's a reason that the Red Sox trade him to the Yankees. They felt the need to do so. I don't think that's particularly a good thing
yeah,
that the Red Sox traded him to the Yankees, but
no, no. In fact, they were, yeah. But even so, who are we looking at for the Mets outfield?
Harrison Bader,
Okay,
Brandon Nimmo, and Starling Marte.
okay. So Harrison Bader, former Yankee, who didn't
So
really,
I'd say the Yankees take 2 out of 3 from there
yeah,
because you have
that,
Judge and Soto
yeah,
beating those, but whoever you take from Verdugo and Grisham would probably lose out to Nimmo or Bader,
yeah,
in my opinion.
yeah. I think so, and I think that if he's healthy, I think you got to give uh, Stanton the DH win.
Yeah.
So, but but again, but the Yankees, the
Yeah,
injuries were
in terms of
racking
a
up for
DH,
them.
it's Stanton versus like Mark Vientos or
Yeah,
something.
who cares? Yeah, like, but like the Yankees injuries rack up every year now. It seems like, and the Mets just seem to be running out of excuses to be good.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
but it doesn't matter because even if they were good, they're not better than the Braves.
Forgot to unmute my mic. I clicked it and I thought I double clicked it, but nevertheless I did not. And we sat and we kind of crapped on the AL Central, but a division that is not necessarily equally as horrid, but just as
Oh, we're gonna do the Central
tough.
now.
We're- Yeah, I was gonna save it for the end, but I'm like,
Okay,
what?
why not
We're
move?
an hour we're an hour in.
Yeah, move
Let's
across
just
the country. Let's just move. Let's just keep this train rolling.
yeah.
Um,
No, no, no. All right, quick pivot because I agree with you. Let's get the West out of the way,
okay,
and we'll end on the Central, and then we'll kind of just burn through the awards real quick.
sounds good.
We may save the other. We'll just do MVPs and Cy Youngs, and then we'll do the other ones at a later
Later,
date, just because for time constraints.
sure.
But but I think the West is fairly straightforward.
Yeah,
I think it's the Dodgers division
to lose.
hands down. I
Yeah,
think they're going to probably win 105 to 110 games.
yep.
That the Padres will probably come in second just by
Oh,
default.
see,
I think the D
I,
box the D box, Jesus Christ, the D backs won't be that far behind, and the Giants will probably be just close enough to be outside of the playoff picture.
oh wow. See, I think the Giants rotation is good enough to
Ooh,
make a splash in that division.
okay, all right.
I think that adding Snell and Robbie Ray, I think that they first of all, when the Giants and Dodgers play each other, it's always gonna be a little extra oomph. It's like the Yankees and Red Sox, and I think that the Giants, by getting Blake Snell, who was already in that division for a few years and has pitched against the Dodgers, and is a reigning Cy Young Award winner, uh, is gonna it's gonna be interesting. I don't, they are not going to catch the Dodgers. No one in that division is going to catch the Dodgers. But I think they will hold the Diamondbacks back. And I think the Padres are an anomaly. I don't know what to expect from them.
It's it's not a bad take. They are a they're definitely a team that, well, the Padres at least, where that everybody that they got from the Juan Soto trade is completely uh they are in a state where you can't really trust them. I think the Giants. I'm trying to pull this up and kind of give you some, because yeah, when you look at Blake Snell, that's a number one right there, and Logan Webb being a number two is massive.
Hmm.
Trying to move Jordan Hicks to the rotation, we'll see how that works. I think the Rogers boys as relievers is is really big. But my thing is, I don't see where that offense is coming from.
Okay.
And I get it. And I get that they've made a lot of inroads. Like going getting Matt Chapman is big. Going and getting Michael Conforto back is big. And getting the kid Lee from Korea, or I was he playing the Korean League or
Yeah,
whatever.
it's a Korean move.
But he in Soler is big. So
Yeah.
they've made those jumps. They've really just tried to stack the deck. But I don't know, and this is kind of just me being the negative Nancy, is I don't know how they're going to construct that lineup to make it
Yeah.
work. And
Yeah.
it feels weird to say because it's like, oh, just throw a bunch of guys that can hit into a lineup and everything's going to be great. It's not. It's not always the case.
Right.
If you have a guy that is used to hitting three and then you're telling him to hit seven, that's not always the best thing.
Yeah.
I I but the Giants scare me in the sense that their their bullpen is really good. I I think the kid Duvall, if he's healthy, is incredibly dangerous.
Yep.
And if you can kind of keep these kids, that they have a lot of prospects who are like just throw straight gas. If they can bring those up and not burn them out, maybe, just maybe, I would move the Giants up. But it's one of those things. It's preseason, it's predictions, and you're just kind of throwing stuff at the wall, and you don't know A, how these teams plan to address the season, and B, how, if you bring these kids up, how they're gonna function a very in a very tense division.
Yeah. Yeah. It's gonna be interesting, but I just think that the the Giants have the rotation, I think is what I want to say, to be somewhat of a threat. And at least if it's not going to be a threat to the Dodgers, at least to the Padres and the Diamondbacks.
That's fair. I think yeah, they and even when I talked about their hitting, it's something where if you were building a fantasy team,
Hmm.
you wouldn't shy away from any of these guys. Even even a guy like Mike Yastrzemski off the bench, you're going, okay, I can work with that.
Right.
Like Lamonte Wade Jr. coming off the bench, you can work with that. He's a guy that is a proven commodity as a spot starter. It's a guy that can play both the infield and outfield. It's something that is just it's a team that you can really look from top to bottom and not not be super torn up about if you're going to say that they are a team that is either good or bad. You're really trying to, in my mind, I'm trying to talk them. I'm trying to talk them out of being in contention rather than talk them being in, if that makes sense. Like
Yeah.
I've just because I feel so much stronger about San Diego and Arizona. It's not me necessarily discounting San Francisco. I'm just putting them in a different spot in the hierarchy just because I feel stronger about the other two.
Well, I can tell you, look, I think what I'm trying to say is if they didn't sign Blake Snell, we wouldn't be having this discussion.
And he's going to leave next year because he
And he's
has
going
an
to leave.
opt-out.
Yeah,
It's an
yeah,
opt-out. So
yeah.
Scott Boras is 100% going to make him leave.
Oh,
But
yeah.
that's
But
that's a
okay, but you
conversation
know
for
what? You bring up
next
a good
year.
point. No, but you bring up a good point though. If that's the case, then that just gives an extra incentives for Snell to go out there and make some noise in that division for a bigger role. You know, which I mean, it's one of those things where like he just won the Cy Young. He has to sign this 2-year deal with San Francisco. Then let's say he goes out there and wins 18 games with the Giants team. Let's just say, okay. So he's basically saying to the rest of the MLB, like, what more do you want for me to get a bigger, you know,
Yeah.
extension or whatever? Like, I'm just saying that I think he's
But
gonna
I
have a
also want to say that Scott Boras kind of fucked him because he had a
yeah. Well,
off on the
Scott,
tail from the Yankees that that Boras put the kibosh on. But
well, Boyd fucks a lot
that's
of
a
people.
Scott
So
Boras thing though. That
yeah, that's a Scott
he's
Boyd thing.
yeah he's done plenty of uh,
Over yeah, yeah. He's got a
questionable
history.
things for his
Yeah,
clients over the years.
over the
But
years.
hey, they get paid in the end. So
Exactly. So, but yeah, I think that the Dodgers, you know, it's funny. I was gonna ask you if you thought that the Dodgers had a shot at beating the Mariners record, but you went lower. You went lower than I expected for the record of the Dodgers.
yeah, mostly because I think that the way baseball is now, there's going to be a stretch of time in the summer where even the most talented of teams, and we see this in basketball a lot, where they just
Yeah.
like we saw with the Bucks and the Celtics, where it's just like, yeah, no, Giannis ain't playing.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep. Yep.
all right, cool. There's gonna be games this summer where it's like the Dodgers playing the Rockies, and then they're throwing out a kid from Double A,
Yeah.
and Will Smith is the only starter in the lineup, and you're going, "What the fuck happened?" And then they lose 7-1, and then you're like, "Okay," but no one cares
Yeah.
because they're going to San Diego the next day, and they have the full lineup back, and then they're just yeah, it is such a long season where you have to
Yeah.
manage things at a certain point. I'm not saying that it has to just be incredibly frequent where you're going, oh God, every 2 weeks we need to give this guy a day off because
Well,
and
my whole thing about the Dodgers and their win loss record this year is, and maybe we should kind of uh, pivot to this conversation about the last two games, start of the season, if you will, um, in Korea. Uh, Even though they lost today, the Dodgers still put up 11 runs, being down like 9-2 or whatever it was. So, and my point being, they are not going away. They're not going to give up. And if you think you have a solid lead on them, you
they're
better make,
never out of any game.
yeah,
That's the
yeah.
main takeaway.
And so, while you say these funny things where like they lose 7-1, like I think that's going to be more rare this season than not. Where I think that they have put together a a team that is so deep where if you rest somebody, the next guy up can hit 20 home runs, like Teoscar Hernandez, like you know, plug in whoever you want. I think that's uh, going to be what's going to. And I'm not saying that the Dodgers are going to win 120 games this year, but it wouldn't shock me if they did.
No, and there's a lot of people that have that same opinion where if they aren't flirting with that record, it's a disappointment.
No, if they don't win the World Series, it's a different point.
That yeah, that
Yeah,
and
who
that's it.
cares how many games they win the regular season?
But that's the whole American sports
I know,
argument. Like
I
the
know.
regular season, if they set this record, then no one gives a shit if they get knocked out in the first round of the playoffs. But that's
Are are you concerned about Yominori's debut today?
yeah. Yamamoto's debut was not ideal,
Hmm.
but his spring wasn't great. We'll see what happens when he is put into a more pressing situation.
Okay.
Because for everything that this Soul series was, it was a game, uh, and we've talked about it. These guys having to fly overseas, and I know it was trying to just expand the Asian market with two teams with uh, a significant number of Asian players,
Mhm.
but to a certain extent, you looked in game one, neither Glasnow or Darvish went deep into the game.
Right.
The prevailing sentiment that if he didn't get, obviously, if he didn't get knocked out in the first inning, Yamamoto wasn't going to go more than 3 or 4 innings today
Yep.
because these are basically still spring training games.
Yeah.
I don't, I'm not super worried, but my biggest concern comes from the fact that the bullpen is getting extended this
Okay.
early.
Yeah.
Because while, yeah, it is still a spring game, so to speak, the fact that neither Glasnow or despite Glass now getting as deep as he did to get out of a couple of jams and give the Dodgers a chance. The fact that they still made it like a fucking 5 to 8 pitcher game
Yeah,
through 2 games is not as much as people want that to be what modern baseball is. I hate it.
I hate it
You
too.
can't have that many guys getting in the games because then you're just giving yourself so many opportunities for mediocre people to get on the field, and it doesn't end well ever.
Yeah, I agree. I just think that sometimes we as fans hit the panic button a little too early, and I think that if Yamamoto ERA is in the five in like June, July, then there's a little bit of a different
Yeah,
sentiment. But March 21st, no, no, not at all. And again, going back to my whole thing about the Dodgers is they are so deep that they can bury his poor performance if they have to.
yeah,
You know, bringing Clayton Kershaw back was huge for them. You know,
yeah. And when he comes back, he's gonna be a 3 or a 4,
which is
really,
huge.
which yeah makes all the difference because it more than anything, it not only puts you in good stead against other teams, that it finally takes what I think is a huge part of his psychological woes
Yeah,
of
the
you
pressure
have
off
to
him.
be the guy to
Yeah,
be the stopper.
yeah,
You have to be the guy that anytime you're on a losing streak, you have to break it. Every time
yeah,
a team is coming to town with a lineup that is a murderer's row, you have to be the one that stops them.
right.
He doesn't have that responsibility anymore.
Nope.
And I think when he comes back in the middle of the summer, yeah, I agree with you. He's going to be a absolutely massive addition
They are
to the
so
playoff
deep.
push.
They're so deep that sliding Mookie Betts to second base is like nothing to them.
Yeah, taking a MVP outfielder and putting him in second and short is not a.
Yeah,
They don't even bat an
and
eye.
have him succeed
Yeah,
there.
they don't even
Is
bat an eye. Moving Max Muncy
yeah,
across the diamond over and over again. They don't even bat an eye. It's absolutely wild how deep the Dodgers are,
and
and the fact that I had to deal with fucking Todd Hollinsworth for as long as I did, I feel like I deserve this.
yeah,
But
I think so.
nevertheless, I think we'll save the awards
Yeah,
for
for next time.
the
And
episode with Roger Maris, but
uh,
we'll end on the NL Central,
yeah,
which I think we are going to potentially be all over the place on.
yeah.
So I will let you start with your thoughts on the Central.
So unlike the AL Central, I don't think it's as much of a mess as the AL Central is. Um, but it is a mess. And while I think many people will sit here today and tell you that the Milwaukee Brewers,
There's more upside in the NL Central.
oh, way more. Uh, I think that a lot of people will tell you that the Milwaukee Brewers are the team to beat. Um, I think this year it's the Cubs. I think the Cubs are going to be back to uh, their um, their dominant self this year. I believe that Chicago has made some good moves, um, and I think the Cardinals are always going to be there. But like we say that all the time, and they were kind of bad last year for the Cardinals. Uh, and I will say that while I don't think that they are going to do anything, I think that the Reds and the Pirates are fun teams to watch. I think that they both have a lot of good young guys on the team um, that are enjoyable to watch, but I would not pick them to win the division. Uh,
It's funny that you say
are you picking the Reds?
I am picking the Cincinnati Reds
Okay.
to
It's
win
just,
the division.
it's good, good. I'm glad because I want to know your reasoning. Because I just think that, like, I don't know. Like, see, the Reds were those teams that they were very hot in the beginning of the year last year, and then when they cooled off, they might as well have just been dead in the water from the day they lost their first series to the rest of the season.
No, and my thought process behind it is that the NL Central this year is going to be a war of attrition of who stays healthy is going to ultimately there's and that seems very just formulaic of if a team stays healthy they have a chance to win.
But you also
But
have to be good. You can't just be
but
healthy.
my thing with the NL Central is the Reds. If you look at their roster in terms of just raw talent, that you have Lodolo and Green as guys that could be frontline starters on any team in that division.
Mhm.
You have Martinez and Pagan who got or back end guys that, if healthy, could be guys in any team in that division. And that lineup is just filled with guys that are just waiting to break out.
Yeah,
Like Tyler Stevenson is a potential all-star catcher. You got they brought in Candelario. They got him from the Cubs. They got Ellie De La Cruz, who's one of the most dynamic players in the game.
yeah.
Encarnacion Strand is
He
an absolute monster.
I mean,
Jonathan
Cruz.
India, they brought back.
Yeah,
Melvin Marte, Spencer Steer. They got guys that can just go and go and go. But if any of those pitchers get hurt, they will completely tank because they can't. I don't think they can go toe to toe, piece working that rotation together because they will score runs, but that's only one piece of the puzzle. You can lose a billion games 8-7.
yeah, yeah. Well, so what is your feeling on the Cubs then?
Oh, I have the Cubs as my last wild card.
Okay, okay. So you do have them. You do think they're going to be good this year?
Yeah, my only thing with the Cubs is they I've always viewed them as a team that can't get out of their own way.
Of course, yeah,
And the way that they approach free agency this year, they went in with such high expectations and they
yeah,
and it feels like a lot of times they had to like take consolation prizes where they like went in on guys and they were like, "Oh, we're in on all of the like the Japanese pitchers," and then they ended up with Imanaga. They
yeah,
they 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 didn't get any of the guys that they really wanted, and and I feels kind of disparaging to say that they got the fucking Kayagawa of the deal, but that in terms of that year of like '07 when it was like guys that were aiming for like Matsuzaka, and then the Yankees got fucking Kayagawa. You're like, okay, that's there.
yeah,
There comes a time where you have to kind of realize that you got the dead man's hand of free agency.
yeah. But you know what?
And
At least they got him, unlike the Red Sox, who were talking to him, and we're like, nah, we're good.
But they ended up falling into Hideki Okajima, who was kind of a stud reliever. So that's
Yeah.
sometimes you get decent consolation prizes, and hopefully for Cubs' sakes, uh, the
Do
old
you have
Shota.
any?
Shota. I was gonna make like a wrestling reference. I was gonna call him Shooter because there's a wrestler named Shota Umino who is. But yeah,
Do,
I think it's Cincinnati is the funnest team,
mhm.
but I'm not completely against you with Chicago winning.
Do you have any thoughts on St. Louis and Pittsburgh?
St. Louis, good riddance. Any anytime that we can just get rid of the Cardinals, I
Yeah.
think the vast majority of fans in the
I'm sick of
sport,
them.
I think it seemed, and every time I talk to people about baseball, if you're not a Cardinals fan, you're just sick of the fucking Cardinals.
Oh man,
And
it's
it's not as if they're like an abrasive franchise. If it's one of those things where you're just like, I want the fucking Cardinals to go away. I want
I
them to be bad for 5 years.
I remember I was at a bar in California, and I told someone I was a Red Sox fan, and they were like, "Oh, you must hate the Yankees." I'm like, "No, I hate the Cardinals actually." That's because they're that team that doesn't go away. They're
Yeah,
just always there, and then when they're there, they somehow win it all.
yeah.
And it's just
It's
like, oh god, you like forget that the Cardinals only have like 8 World Series because they're just always around,
yeah.
and it's just so annoying. And then, uh, Pittsburgh. Look, you
You
just want
want
to
it
root
to
for
be.
them, yeah. But I do want to ask you, uh, why you did not pick the Milwaukee Brewers.
I'm just I'm over the Brewers.
I think that they're done. They're done. They're just
I'm done with the Brewers. I
yeah.
am done.
Yeah, I just think that the Brewers are that team that's had way too many chances and just don't take any opportunities.
Yeah, I'll be right back, but I agree with you.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where they they continuously be the favorite um for you know season after season these last couple of years, and every time they get to the playoffs, it's either one and done or maybe divisional round and then they're done. I just don't think that they have enough, do enough, and present themselves as a team to be in the NL ever. Um, and then especially since you know giving up on Corbin Burns didn't do any favors for them. So I just think that uh, they just need to maybe take a step back for a few seasons and rebuild.
Yeah, the and the thing that stinks is that the Brewers, they're still locked up in that Christian Yelich contract, and they just threw a bunch of money at the kid Churio, and you're like, all right, so at least they're recognizing that they need to invest in the future, but
But then
there's
they sign, you know, Brad Woodruff back, but then trade Corbin Burns. So it's like, what are you like? What is your game plan?
yeah, they're talking out of both sides of their mouth. Yeah,
Yeah. So it's like, okay, so you're gonna sign. I mean, Woodruff, he's not a bad pitcher, but like, out of the two, you're gonna trade your better pitcher.
and they put a lot of resources into bringing in Reese Hoskins coming off an ACL.
Yep.
That
Yeah.
I I'm not particularly fond of the let's run it back with Wade Miley for the ninth time.
Yeah, that's yeah. It's those kind of
It's
mistakes though that that's why the Brewers won't get by the wild card or divisional matchup.
yeah, it's yeah. I,
Because you're in a game 3 against the Dodgers, let's say, and they're running out Otani, and you're running out Wade Miley. What do you think's gonna
yeah.
happen?
It's like, oh god, all right, we're bringing out Tyler Glasnow tonight, and you're going with and I'm gonna say it in the most Austin Powers way, Jakob Yunis,
A-
James,
and then he's gonna get rocked, and
Royals
then
legend.
he's gonna get rocked, and then you're gonna sit there and be like, "What happened?"
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
but yeah,
I'm just I agree with you. We are collectively over the Brewers.
yes. So, we'll recap the NL and then wrap it up.
Yeah, I think the so we're both on the Braves and the Dodgers as
Yep,
division winners.
yep,
You're on the Cubs. I'm on
yep,
the Reds.
yep.
So I think to end everything, we go through both leagues,
Okay.
and because we've already said going through who we think are the division winners, but I think the big thing is who we think are going to be those wild cards.
Okay.
That is the a huge uh, standpoint more than anything because you can you can pick an easy yeah, picking the Braves and the Dodgers is a bit of a layup.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but if you can kind of get those wild cards, that's kind of where the
The meat and
the
potatoes
but
of the
the
division.
butter is bread, if you will.
Yeah. Yep.
Getting those three teams in there. Let's so in the American League, who are your three? And you don't have to put them in any particular order.
Yeah.
We're not gonna get that in depth. We're just gonna be like, you got in the playoffs. Thumbs up to you.
Sure. So I'm going to pick the Houston Astros, the um, Minnesota Twins, and the Toronto Blue Jays. And I'm only picking the Blue Jays because they're the I think they are the most complete team for everything I said about the Blue Jays in the beginning. They are still a complete team after the Astros to be in contention. So I think they are on paper, going on paper. I think that they are better than the Twins. I think that the Yankees injuries are gonna pile up to the point where they're just gonna uh, wave the white flag if Cole can't come back, if Judge gets hurt. I don't see them making moves if they're not gonna have their best players for the playoffs. Um, we don't have enough time to talk about the Red Sox. We both agree that the Tampa Bay window is closed or closing. Um, we talked about the Central and why, um, you know, if you're not going to win it, you you might as well try hard to get that wild card. And I think the Astros are still the team to beat, despite the fact that I picked
Yeah.
Seattle to win that division.
No, and I think if you're not going to take one, you have to take the other as a wild card because I'm with you. I don't have a wild card coming out of the Central, but I have the Yankees, the
Okay.
Blue Jays, and the Mariners as my three wild cards because I have
So you also don't have the Rangers making the playoffs.
no, I don't.
Okay. Cool. Okay.
I do
Um,
not.
yeah, I would have the Yankees making the playoff if the Yankees were healthy, and I just think that the the last few
My
years.
thing is, with the Yankees at least, is they are going to tread water enough through the first couple months, and then they are just going to absolutely obliterate their farm system and go make trades and get pitchers.
But
Because I think if Garrett Cole is going to be out for the season, they're going to one either overspend for Montgomery or two overspend in a couple of trades. Like they will go get somebody that will kind of push them up. They will go
what happens?
they will go overspend and go get Shane Bieber.
But what happens if they are 9, 10, 11 games behind Baltimore and 7 or 8 games behind Toronto?
Then they'll just focus on getting
But
that
what I'm
last
saying,
wild
but
card.
what I'm saying is like
No, no,
that's
I
a
hear you.
realistic possibility.
But my thing is, at that point, they will just immediately hyper focus on that final wild card.
But
If they're so deep out of the division,
mhm,
they will just do everything they can to just kind of snake their way in
yeah,
because they can't take another year where they are out of where they're 82 and 80.
I just think
They can't do it.
I
The
just
fan base and the organization will fucking just go scorched earth.
I think that that, I agree with you because that's the Yankee thing to do. But I think the issue with trying to get those best players is the team that we've seen get those best players lately has been the Houston Astros. So they are going to have to give up more than what the Astros are willing to give up, which we've seen has been quite a lot to get a Shane Bieber, to get, uh, you know, insert name here. Because the Astros have also been that team that, you know, even when they're in the division lead, have shown that they're willing to scrape from their farm system to get those top guys.
Yeah, and we'll see that bidding war go
Yeah,
down.
yeah. You know who won't do any moves? It's the Boston Red Sox, and that's because they are okay with being 82 and 80.
Oof. I think for that team they would fucking kill to be 82 and 80 this year.
Yeah. Again,
Nevertheless,
again,
I will start
well,
with my NL wild cards, and
okay,
we'll leave your Red Sox rant for
for a different day.
next
Yeah,
time,
yeah.
where we can just give you like half an hour to just let me sit
Talk about
back
the Red Sox. We'll
and just
dedicate an episode to my beloved question mark Red Sox.
and we'll get you some people on here to just feed your fire.
But
So
yeah, so NL, who do you got?
NL, I have once again no. I could see the Cubs coming as good because I have the Reds. I could see the Cubs potentially sneaking in
Mhm,
as a wild card from the Central, and I'm not against it.
mhm.
But I once again have one team from the East and two from the West. I have the the Phillies, and then I have the Padres and the Diamondbacks.
Okay, so I also have the Phillies, and I'm gonna swap the Padres out and put the Giants in the Diamondbacks.
Not not against that at all.
Um,
It's one of those things where
and again, this is
you can make a
all
case for it 100%.
I'm just basing my Giants thoughts on that rotation.
Yeah,
You know,
they're formidable. They
yeah.
are.
I just think that that pitching wins, and I think they have a pretty nasty starting five rotation. And if they all stay healthy, uh, if they win games 2-1, who cares? They win, right?
Yeah, it's getting there is
Yeah.
the best.
But I will say that though, out of the three teams in the NL, um, I still think that the best of those wild card teams is the Phillies.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So, um, I think the Phillies will be the number one in those. If if you want to do like a 1, 2, 3 wild card team, I think the Phillies are a clear cut number one wild card team.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
I think that the Phillies could win probably 90 something games.
oh, easily. They will miss that division, I think, by no less than 4 games or no more than 4 games.
Yeah, I think it may be just a slightly bigger deficit than that, but I'm with you. They're not going to get like blown away. Like
Right.
Atlanta's not going to win that division by like 15 games.
Yes,
It's
exactly.
gonna be in striking distance, but it will by the middle of September. We'll know that Atlanta has that shit wrapped up.
Right.
But
And that'll
speaking
that'll
of,
that'll be an
yeah,
interesting trade deadline to watch for too, because we all know Dombrowski likes to get his farm system for guys to help.
yeah, no, you ain't wrong. You ain't wrong.
So
But speaking of wrapping things up, we're gonna sit here and we're gonna see if the closing music plays, and we're gonna say goodbye to you fine folks. And let's see if it goes. Come on, StreamYard, don't do me dirty. Have a great evening, everybody.
see ya.